All right, everybody, I'm looking at like I'm a CPA. Tax season is coming to an end. It is almost that April 18th, 2022 tax return deadline for 2021 individual income tax returns. I know that many of you, like me, have not yet even started your tax return yet and don't intend to by April 18th, and so you want to extend your tax return. This video is for you, my friends. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly on my computer screen how to extend your tax return for free using TurboTax. If you want to use a different tax software, that's fine. It's the same thing. Well, it'll look different, but same concept. Then I'm going to show you how to extend your tax return the good old-fashioned way, using pen and paper. Finally, at the end of the video, I'm going to talk about state tax return extensions, just a few pointers on those. So without further ado, let's get into it. Actually, there is something to do. I do want to mention my own services. If you owe the IRS $10,000 or more, you can call 844-321-TAXES or email taxrelief@loganalec.com for a free consultation about possible tax relief, tax resolution services for your tax debt to minimize the amount you owe to the IRS or your state government. All right, now that ado is out of the way, let's get right into filing your tax extension using TurboTax. All right, so here we are at the TurboTax home screen. And if you already have a TurboTax login, you can obviously input it here. If you don't have a TurboTax login yet, you can create an account right down here. It is absolutely free to do. As for me, I do have a dummy TurboTax login that I believe I created just for these videos when I did my TurboTax review. All right, let's see if this works. It's taking its sweet time. Okay, now it wants the password. Okie dokie. Let's see. All right, I'm in, guys. All right, so what do we do here? So TurboTax conveniently has this little button right here that says File an Extension. So you just click that. Now, I will say that I logged into a stored Intuit account. So, like, I already input taxpayer information. This is all fake information, by the way. So, you would just input this basic information about yourself, your social, your birth date, all this stuff. So it should be pretty straightforward. Where did that extension button go? There we go, File an Extension. Shouldn't be asking you anything too crazy. All right, so TurboTax has given us some reminders here. Right, if you can't finish your return by April 18th, an extension will give you more time to file. Things you need to know. An extension only extends your time to file your return. That is absolutely correct. There's no extension for paying any taxes you owe. That is, of course, correct. If you do not pay your tax liability in by April 18, 2022, then the IRS will assess a failure to pay penalty. This penalty is equal to 0.5% of your unpaid balance for every month or part of a month that you have not paid in your 2021 tax liability. But it could be 10 times worse. You could be assessed the failure to file penalty, which is 5% of your unpaid balance for each month or part of a month that you don't file. But by filing an extension, right, you're not going to be filing late because you're going to file by October. And it's all going to be good. You're not going to have the failure to file penalty. You would just have the failure to pay penalty if you don't pay in your full tax liability for 2021. Right? If you owe taxes, they recommend paying the full amount before April 18th. Keeps any interest and penalties to a minimum. Yes, IRS charges you interest in addition to penalties on your unpaid balances. Okay, so so we just hit continue. It's going to ask some questions. Are you a U.S. citizen or resident? I'm going to say yes, I'm a U.S. citizen. Are you a citizen, a resident who's living outside? Oh, wait, no. Was I actively serving the military? I'm going to say no. Are you a U.S. citizen or resident who's living outside the U.S. or Puerto Rico in your main place of work? No, I'm going to say no. right? Because I'm going to assume that this fake taxpayer was not serving in the military, and I'm going to assume that they're not living outside the U.S. or Puerto Rico. Okay, so personal info. So I think this would probably be blank if you had not had a TurboTax account before, but these are all filled in for me because I use this fake taxpayer to do my TurboTax reviews that I do. But you would just fill in this information, right? Your first name, middle name, or middle initial rather, then your last name, social, date of birth. If you're married and plan on filing jointly, you would check that box and input the information for your spouse. I'm assuming that this fake taxpayer is single, unmarried. And then you enter your mailing address. This is already input because I already created this account for this fake taxpayer, but you would just obviously input your information here. All right, so now it's going to ask you to estimate your 2021 tax liability. And this is because, first of all, on the paper form, the paper extension form, the 4868, this is information that goes here in lines 4 through 8, right? Your estimate of the total tax liability for 2021, the total amount that's been paid in for 2021, such as your wage withholding, and your balance due. And then the amount you want to pay of that balance due. So that's what this is, going for. We've already talked about this stuff, right? Your personal information. Now it's this section here. Okay, so, you can just estimate this. I mean, I think it's already kind of estimating this because I already input some information about this fake taxpayer as I was doing my TurboTax review. But, you're not going to get in trouble if this is wrong. Like, theoretically, the IRS can deny an extension, right? Theoretically, like if there's significant. Well, first of all, I've never seen them deny an extension. Okay, I've never seen it in my career as a CPA. So don't freak out if you don't get this to the dollar. What you could do is just, put the amount that you had withheld if you're confident you're going to get a refund, right? So if you're withholding, the total amount that you paid in through your wage withholding was $10,000. You can just say your federal tax liability was $10,000, right? And then you would have, the form would look like this: 0, you're not going to pay anything in, right? Or you can do a more in-depth estimate, put some of your tax docs in, like maybe your big tax docs, like your W-2 and stuff, into the tax software, let it estimate it, right, to get these, a little bit closer. But I wouldn't stress about these things. The only reason I would stress is if you're going to owe the IRS a lot of money and you can't afford to pay it in by April 18th. Then you could be looking at penalties and interest. But but your extension will still be accepted. Okay, I've never seen them deny an extension. Okay, like look, what's TurboTax say? What if my estimate isn't correct? Right? They even say don't worry. If you overestimate your taxes, you'll get a refund of your overpayment. If you underestimate your taxes, you may have to pay a late payment penalty and interest payment when you file your tax return. And yeah, so this is the late payment penalty I was talking about. And then, the interest, which is fairly low right now. All right, so we're going to hit continue. Continue with the extension. Well, let me go back. Like, let's say that you estimated that you would owe some taxes. Like, let's say you only got $10,000 withheld on your wages, but let's say you estimated your tax liability was going to be $15,000. Okay, so this is 0, 0. Okay. Use the address on my tax return. Okay. Why is it asking me to register now? I don't know what this is about. Okay, maybe you have to register to pay. Maybe that's it. I don't know. But so these are your options to pay, right? If you're going to make an extension payment. Direct debit from the bank account, which I think you can input your bank account information. Yeah, so you can input your bank account information to pay just through TurboTax. but they'd want to verify your identity using your 2020 adjusted gross income. So you would look at your 2020 tax return. Right, so here's a 2020 tax return. You would input your adjusted gross income from line 11 there to verify, your identity. And then I think it would ask for how much you want to pay. Let's say what you would want to pay the full amount. Okay, and then you would input your bank information. Scheduled payment date. Probably want to do April 18th at the latest. Name of your bank, checking or savings account, routing number, confirm routing account, confirm account. So that's one way to pay your taxes due along with your extension. You could do a check. Let's see what TurboTax tells you. Check. Okay, so it doesn't look like that they're giving the address there to mail it. You can find that address here. Well, you can find the instructions in here. Your check would be payable to United States Treasury. You would write your social, daytime phone number, and 2021 form 4868 on your check or money order. But if you did e-file your extension, right, and you want to mail a check to the IRS for payment, you would use this same 4868 as your voucher, okay? But it says, please note with your payment that your extension request was filed electronically. So you could put that in the memo as well. All right, and here's to file. So if you're making a payment by check, then you would send the check to whatever address here, whatever PO box here corresponds to where you live. So if you live in Florida, you would send your check to PO Box 1302, Charlotte, North Carolina, with that zip code. If you live in Colorado, you would send it to this one. So that's how that works. Or you can pay on the IRS website. Let's see what TurboTax tells you with that. Okay, so and then if you want to pay on the IRS website, you go to irs.gov/payments, and there's some options there to pay: bank account, credit card, debit card, PayPal. Okay, so now what if you think you owe and you put you owe on your extension, but you don't want to pay? What does TurboTax let you do? So I guess there's no option that says hey, I don't want to pay anything with my extension. But if you don't want to pay anything with your extension, but you still want to put that you owe money on your extension, I guess you could just hit by check or money order or on the IRS website. Then you can still e-file your extension through TurboTax, but just not actually pay. So at this point, this is the screen where your extension you're actually going to e-file your extension. So I'm not actually going to do this, because that would actually e-file an extension with the IRS. I don't want to do that because this is a completely fake taxpayer, Jimmy, who I made up. But to do this, you would create some 5-digit signature ID. Just random. That's just a random number. It could be anything. Make sure you remember it. Do the CAPTCHA, right? And then hit transmit my extension. And that's how you would file your extension with TurboTax, your federal extension anyway. Okay, now let's talk about how to file your extension the old-fashioned way using pen and paper. To do that, you would simply fill out Form 4868, which you can download from the IRS website at this link right here, irs.gov/pub/irs-pdf/f4868.pdf, and make sure it's the one for 2021. And you would just fill out, your name. This is, fake information. Street. Oh, no. You just put the address there. And then, your social. This is the fake social. If you're married, your spouse's social. And that's the same thing, right? You would estimate your total tax liability for 2021. Let's say you estimated for $15,000 and you had $10,000 taken out of your paycheck. So you owe $5,000, but let's say you don't want to pay anything, right? Or maybe you do want to pay something, let's say. And then these are those two questions that TurboTax asked about, where you live. I'm not going to check these because I'm assuming this individual is in the United States. Okay, then you would basically cut along this dotted line here and mail it. And where do you mail it? And yes, you have to put a stamp on it. If you're making a payment, then you would send it right to the appropriate address in this column for where you live, what state you live in. If you're not making a payment, then you would send it to this address that corresponds to the state you live in. And that's pretty much it. If you want to make a payment right by check, you can enclose your check in the same envelope as you send your extension. Write your social security number, daytime phone number, and 2021 form 4868 on your check or money order. Or you can file your extension via paper and then pay online at irs.gov/payments. That's the site that I looked at earlier. So that's it. That's basically how you would file your extension via paper. You have to do this by April 18th. It has to be postmarked by or on or before April 18th, 2022. Okay, so you can't run it to the post office at 11:30 at night on April 18th and expect that to work. No, that your extension will be late. It will be invalid. It has to be postmarked by the post office by April 18th. With e-filing your extension, right through TurboTax, you can do that all the way up to 11:59 p.m. local time on April 18th, 2022 this year. But the paper filing your extension has to be postmarked. It goes by the postmark date. So check with your post office when's the last time you can get it in there for it to be postmarked. I would personally recommend that you just get some kind of return receipt, certified mail, or something like that to make sure that the IRS actually received your paper filed extension if you do paper file your extension. Obviously, if you send a check in with your extension, that the IRS received it if you see that they cashed the check. All right, now I just want to talk a little bit about state tax extension. So when it comes to state tax extensions, there's basically three ways they work. One is the state automatically extends all their taxpayers' tax extension due dates until the extended due date of the return, right? Which is typically October 17th, 2022 this year for both federal and most states. California, for example, automatically extends its taxpayers' tax returns until that deadline. The second approach that some states take is some states, they automatically extend your tax return if you have a valid federal extension, right? So by filing your federal extension, that extends your state tax return as well. And the third approach, though, and these are the states you have to watch out for, are states that do not automatically extend your tax return and states that do not accept your federal extension as a valid state extension. So New York, for example, is one of these states. If you live in New York, you have to file a separate state extension in addition to your federal extension in order to extend your state income tax return, your New York state income tax return. There are other states that do this. It is fairly rare. I would check your State Department of Revenue website if you have any questions about that. There are also local returns, like city returns. Some states, particularly like in the Midwest, Ohio, Michigan, some cities impose like an income tax, and they may have their own rules for extending their income tax return. So make sure you don't only understand the federal income tax extension rules, which I'm going over in this video for everybody's benefit, but make sure you understand your state and local rules as well. All right, folks, thank you so much for watching. Happy extending your tax return. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, if you or somebody you know owes back taxes, typically $10,000 or more to the IRS or to their state, you can go ahead and give us a call at 844-321-TAXES to schedule a free consultation with a tax professional. I try to make those calls as well. You could also email taxrelief@loganalec.com and let us know a little bit about your situation. Speaking of tax relief, I have a video on how to submit your own offer in compromise to the IRS to settle your tax debt right over here. I also have a video on our sister channel, Money Done Right, that reviews the TurboTax tax software for this year. You can find that video right down here. See you next video, folks. Bye-bye.